So one of the things I also wanted to start talking about is like I'm super into like fringe, like Christianity type stuff, right? And conspiracy theories and all that kind of stuff. So let me see if I have my Bible app on this phone real quick. But one thing that I wanted to just kind of touch on and talk about was, and Professor Bador is probably going to be like, what the heck, John? Because he thinks I'm crazy. And I am a little crazy, so that's all right.
Aren't we all?
Yeah. So some of the fringe stuff, I think a good jumping off point for getting into some of the fringe Bible stuff is Genesis 6, right? And Genesis 6, 1 through 4, right? And I'll read this out. So this is about the increasing corruption on the earth, right? That's the title of this section. When man began to multiply on the face of the land, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of man were attractive, and they took as their wives any they chose. Then the Lord said, my spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh. His days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward. When the sons of God came into the daughters of man, and they bore children to them, these were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown. The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thought of his heart was only evil continually. And the Lord regretted that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart. So the Lord said, I will blot out man who I've created from the face of the land, man and animals, creeping things and birds of the heaven, for I'm sorry that I've made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. So that's the last section right before the flood. Mm-hmm. The flood, right? So what do you think that means? What is that about? I mean, this is one thing that got me kind of diving into some of the weird stuff in the Bible that nobody talks about. Mm-hmm. So that first 4 verses, what do you guys think that is? What is that all about?
The way I think of it is like, I read it and like knowing what the definition of the Nephilim are, like kind of like what they actually are.
Yeah.
If you look at like the Bible and everything, you know, the offspring of the fallen angels and the humans.
Okay, who are the fallen angels?
Not demons, but
the sons of God.
The sons of God.
Yeah.
And how they were evil, right? And they weren't good, like the giants and all them. Mm-hmm. I think that was the Nephilim. But the way I think of it is that people were to say that people who are evil was like just regular people who just became super corrupted, I would think that we'd be worse now. Just if you look at our earth now and like how corrupted it is now, mm-hmm. You'd think, how could it be that much worse than what it already is now?
Yeah.
Kind of how I think of it. It's like kind of makes me think that it was more than just, our own corruptness. It was like more than that.
It was more than that. You think something
mm-hmm.
else was added to that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Natalie, what are you thinking over there?
I honestly don't know. This is my first time actually thinking about this.
Yeah. It's a deep dive, Natalie. Yeah. It's one of those ones. There's a couple books I've read about it. So Michael Heiser is a theologian. He's passed away now. He had cancer and passed away about a year ago. But he has a couple documentaries that he put out about this called the Unseen Realm, mm-hmm. And Angels and Demons is another one that he put out. And then there's a couple books that he's written as well called The Unseen Realm and I think Angels and Demons.
It's a documentary too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You should watch it.
Yep. It's really interesting. So what this is talking about says, when man began to multiply on the face of the land and the daughters were born to them. So this is the early man. This is after Adam and Eve. Mm-hmm. The world was starting to populate. And the sons of God. So the sons of God are referring to angels that were living in heaven with God. They saw that the daughters of man were attractive, so they fell in love with them, they had lust for them, and then they came to the earth and they took those women as their wives, and so they procreated with them, had children with them. And then the Nephilim is the product of that marriage between or that the offspring of the sons of God and the women. So the Nephilim were known as giants mm-hmm. in the Old Testament. So mm-hmm. when you think about the Old Testament, you think about giants who was a giant? Do you remember who you would remember as a giant in the Bible?
David and
Yes. Goliath?
Goliath.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was about to say.
Let me hit this record button again. There it goes. So David and Goliath. So Goliath was a giant, right? And so the whole giants in the Bible thing has always intrigued me.
Yeah.
And as I started digging into it and reading about, Michael Heiser and some of his findings in the Bible and around the world and things like that, there's been bones of giants that have been found.
Really?
Yeah. And they have the Smith. Here he goes. He's pulling it up. So you can look at there's lots of documented findings of giants in the giants' bones found, and there's giant footprints even found. You see that? Isn't that crazy? So just down the road in Glen Rose, Texas, where you guys just went to camp at Riverside, is called Dinosaur State Park is there, right? And there's documented, and they found these footprints, these gigantic footprints, size, I think it's a size 25 shoe, would it be equivalent to? So about 15, 16-inch foot, so gigantic foot. And in that foot is a dinosaur track. So what do you think? Does that mean dinosaurs and humans were around at the same time? If you have a dinosaur track in a giant human footprint, right? Isn't that weird?
It's tickling my brain.
A giant human with a dinosaur.
A giant human with a dinosaur. So I don't know. It's just super interesting. I mean, you could dive into this, but the Smithsonian, supposedly, I listen to tons of podcasts about this kind of stuff because it's very interesting. But apparently the Smithsonian is aware of this, and when any type of giant bones have been found, the Smithsonian Museum comes in and scoops them up, takes them and hides them.
Why?
Why? I don't guess they want us to believe that there were actually giants on this earth. What do you think about that?
It's kind of weird.
Crazy.
Kind of, yeah.
It's a bit suspicious.
So get this. All right. So in the book, so if you want to look into more of this giant stuff and the fallen angels, the book of Enoch is really good. We've talked about that. We bought that Ethiopian Bible. Remember? It has all the different books in it. So the book of Enoch is in that. I have a copy of the book of Enoch on my phone. I've read through it. But Enoch gives an account of these fallen angels, right? These sons of God that came. So there's a mountain in the Middle East called Mount Hermon, and that's where these angels descended to and came to the earth on top of Mount Hermon. And in the book of Enoch, and I don't have it pulled up right now, but it talks about each one. There was 200 of these angels that came down at that time. And then there was a handful of them, I want to say it was about 20 of them, that were the different leaders of these angels. And each one of these fallen angels actually had assignments that they had in heaven with that they were over. So one of them might have been over the wind. One might have been over the stars. One was over the sun and the moon. There's like different things. Maybe one was over wildlife, things like that. But they taught the humans different things, like how to make weapons, how to go to war, how to make themselves beautiful and deceitful, to women to put on like makeup and jewelry and stuff like that to be able to seduce men, how to make medications, right? How to mix different types of plants together to make medications and things like that. And so
psychedelic drugs come from that too? Like,
I don't know if that came from that, but I mean, you could put those together and be like, is that where that came from? Because I was listening to, I think it was a Faith and Fiction podcast, and they were talking about this, and you hear about all these psychedelic drugs and all this kind of stuff. So one of them is called DMT.
Yeah.
And there's like certain ingredients that you have to mix from certain different plants. It's like 4 or 5 or 6 different plants you have to mix together to get this DMT. So makes you wonder, is like, how did somebody, you can't just figure that out, because it's been used for like centuries. Like DMT has been used for hallucinogenics and psychotropic medication for a long time. So where would somebody in the ancient times get this recipe to put all these different plants together to get this chemical that makes you trip out and see like other realms is what like you listen to Joe Rogan talk about it. He's like, people who do this see other realms.
Like Billy Strings had a whole story about when he took DMT for the first time.
Yeah.
It's crazy. He said that it was like he saw this lady or whatever, and she came and grabbed him, and he shot up into the sky, like above the universe, and like saw all the universe, and then all the way down to like a grain of salt in it or something like that. It was like a whole different thing. Yeah,
it's insane. So it makes you wonder: is that where that stuff came from?
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know, but it's really interesting to think. There's got to be more to the story than what we've been told or what we believe. And I think there is. I think you have other resources, extra biblical texts and things like that that are, quote unquote, part of the Apocrypha, which is the hidden texts that are not a part of the Bible. I think you can get some more information from them. Are those all like, should you like, put a lot of weight behind those? Probably not. I mean, should you read it to try to understand more? I think is great. Like the Book of Enoch, for example, even like the early Christians, like first century Christians that were in Jesus even was aware of the Book of Enoch, probably read the Book of Enoch. Jesus's brother Jude, who is an author that's in the Bible, quotes the Book of Enoch in Jude. There's some other references to the Book of Enoch in the Bible. So are they books that we should probably be reading? Probably so. Probably should look into them. Should we put like a lot of emphasis on it? Probably not. But if you're interested in getting a deeper dive into like, where things came from and how things are, and there may be some questions in the Bible of things that are different or don't make sense, maybe you should dive into them and check them out. Thank you for watching this Old Gorilla Jiu-Jitsu podcast short. For more like this, follow the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple.